All right, we're doing a do-over. And Lima's thing is already not impressed. So, yeah. So today is laundry day, specifically the bedding. Um, so if you saw my pillow without the case, that's what's going on there. Um, I was going to bed last night. Okay, it is that time of year where the dogs are shedding a lot. And so there's dog hair like everywhere, which, I mean, par for the course, whatever. But last night, Taz cozies in and he likes to sleep like right here when I first am in bed and kind of doing my wind down process. He likes to be cuddly. And the biggest thing that I noticed was how much he stunk. And it's like, oh, you guys have to have baths today. So, since today is bath day, it is also doing the laundry day. So, doing the bedding day specifically. So, sheets in the comforter. Sheets are in the dryer. Comforters in the washer. Debating on adding the mattress pad in, even though, I mean, I wasn't going to. But now that we're sitting in here and, some of us are all stretched out on it. Especially the one that's especially stinky, which is by my feet. Yeah. Plus he's gross. He looks grimy. But anyway, so that's on the agenda because they stink. He smells like he's been sitting on furniture that my father's been sitting on. And you know how I feel about that? That's disgusting, right? So, right. Plus, Sunday, Taz managed to get his head peed on by Gidge. So, this one. Because we were walking and Ziva stopped to pee, and then Gidget went to pee after she did, and Taz was trying to sniff and had got his head up under Gidget's leg while she's in the middle of peeing, and she peed on his head and it went in his ear. And he just looks at me and it's like, ah. It's like, ah. Usually he's the one peeing on heads, and not this time. He's gotten his head peed on before too, but at this point, I don't know what it is about this fucking year, but my dogs have all done this to each other when we've been on walks. I think every single one of them has had their head peed on at this point in time. But Taz is the most recently. And I had like a paper towel that I washed, or I had wet and was trying to rinse his head off, but it's like, we're gonna have to do the bath at some point. So it's just, today's the day. Because he smells. And he smells not just like he got peed on Sunday, he smells like he's been laying in nastiness on furniture as well, and it's just time. Because I don't want to go to bed every night having that smell to greet me. It's awful. So yeah. So anyway, that's something. I watched this tarot reading the other day, Lotus Tile Tarot, and it was one of those where, okay, there's like reading for your person kind of a thing, and there's a person A and there's a person B. And for the person B, which is the me on it, she was talking about a lot of hermiting energy, the thing that I appreciated the most, I think, was when she was talking about, she said it feels like their brain goes really fast and they have a hard time keeping up with what they're talking about, and they might stammer a lot. It's like, oh yeah. Turns out, as I've been doing this YouTube thing, I've discovered that I do that a whole lot. It's like, yeah, that's definitely me. But I don't know. I kind of enjoy those readings just from the standpoint of when they start talking about stuff that I can definitely tell is me. It's like, yep, that's me. that one she was also talking about a tendency for self-deprecating humor. It's like, yeah, I've had that. I still to a degree, but not as bad as I used to be about actually being completely negative toward myself. I've eased up on that, thankfully. But, and also like the where she's talking about okay, so since it was the person A and person B type setup, she's talking about person A as, people are drawn into the energy, which, okay, so he's in music, and that makes sense, right? And on the other end of it, she said that there's a lot of like I don't even know how she said it exactly, but essentially the negative energies are drawn to it and, try to latch on and pull you down kind of a thing. It's like, yeah, my life. Which I'm really kind of aggravated because my aunt sent me a message the other day saying that she left me some money over at my grandma's house. And my immediate reaction was, because of course she did, because they are trying to make me have to go spend time with my grandmother. They don't know why I don't want to spend time with my grandmother. They just know I don't want to spend time with my grandmother. So, like, this is, like, across the family. Everybody has made that association that I'm the one that's not going over there to spend time with her, right? And my mom keeps going on and on about how, the youngest sister's kids, they'll go over there, they spend time with her, they make her dinner or whatever. It's like, good for them. I'm not. But yeah, so when she said that they had left the money, it felt to me like they had just left and I was literally walking the dogs around. Or no, I was over next door from my grandma's house at my aunt's house, spending time with her dog that day. And so if my aunt would have said anything about, we're here, we'll just leave this, I would have gone then. But I don't want to go over there when it's just me and my grandmother because it's a lot harder to exit at that point in time, right? So, like, if I were to have my parents in the car and my mom says, let's go over to my grandma's house, right? That would be okay because I could go in, get the money, and vacate. And they could spend time with her and all would be, like, fine, right? But no, they want to try to force me to go spend time with her, and I do not want to spend time with her because, there again, those icky, low vibe energies like to attach and make it very hard to disconnect, right? The energy vampires trying to literally suck all the life out of you that they possibly can, so we are going to force you to have to spend time with people you don't want to spend time with. Yeah. And like yesterday, my mom had an appointment that was on the north side of Indy, and she said theoretically she could get there on her own, but she still, with traffic and everything, she would prefer not to. So I was already planning on going to take her to her appointment. And then as we're getting ready to leave, my dad shows up. It's like he's going because there again, it's the same kind of thing. It's that low vibe, icky energy. Here, let me listen to all this bullshit you don't want to pay any attention to. Let me force you to pay attention to it because I don't give a shit if you think you don't want to hear it. I'm going to listen to it without headphones because I can make you listen to it that way. He's getting better about realizing that I don't just take it like I used to. So like yesterday, I had headphones on because I was going somewhere with my mom, at least. I was going to have them with me, but especially once I found out that he was going. So then we get to where her appointment is, and she goes in, and he and I stay in the car. And I have my headphones on. And at one point, I went in to run to the bathroom real quick. And when I come back out, he's listening to his political bullshit, and it's always the right wing, doesn't give a shit about actually what's going on so much as just buying into the propaganda bullshit, right? And, as soon as I hear anything pro pedophile in chief, I was just like, do you have headphones? He's like, and starts like getting on the verge of having a temper tantrum kind of a thing, and then just quits because I had my headphones. I was just trying not to hear the shit he was listening to, right? And then my mom comes out, and when she wanted to go, that's another thing, okay? Another part of that tarot reading that I was listening to was something about the connection point being after it seems like there's some sort of furniture item that's being bought. My mother is currently on the quest to find a couch. So that, of course, was the first thing, 11/11, that I thought of as soon as she said that, because my mom has been actively pulling me in, trying to get me to help her find a couch. And, she was talking about finding like a sleeper sofa. Fuck. So if my brother and sister-in-law come this way for Christmas or something, then yeah. Anyway, when it was mentioned in the tarot reading, it got my attention. But yesterday, after my mom's appointment, she was like, well, is there Nashley furniture around here? She said, well, I would like to go see what they have. And she's been looking online and a bunch of stuff. So it's like, she'll find things on the marketplace on Facebook. And every single time it's like, if you are looking on Facebook, remember, we do not have my brother around to help us move it anymore. I said, we do not have the people that we need, because it'd be me. And then maybe we could talk my cousin into it. The one that's around most often. But I don't know. But like, my dad's useless on that kind of stuff now. There's, the one uncle might be willing. They'd probably both be willing. But there's health stuff, and it's like, it's not going to be as easy. And the problem with the sleepers is it's so damn heavy. I've said multiple times, if you are looking to get the sleeper sofa, you need to find somebody that will deliver, because I cannot do it on my own. And of course, there's going to be a whole ordeal anytime, she wants to try to figure out that end of it too, right? Who's going to do it? And, I mentioned the other day, it's like, well, I said there is the potential option of, if you find one that way, maybe you could talk to a moving company that would be able to do it. I said, but it would not be me, because I don't want to do that, especially by myself. The couch that my father has virtually destroyed in the past 5 years or so, was one we found on the marketplace. My brother and sister-in-law also went, although Jen and Gracie stayed in the car at the place. And, I went up with my parents, and we had the trailer on the back of the car. And it was a pain in the ass, but my brother and I did it, right? And luckily we had a tarp, because it ended up raining on the way back. So that was it was exciting. It had the potential to be way more complicated, but luckily me and my brother worked together really well on, trying to figure this kind of stuff out. And he was really good about knowing that what I was saying was making sense, as far as how we wrap the thing and how we move it and rotate it to get it out the door. We have the conversation to make it work, and together we can make it happen. But it's definitely a back and forth collaborative effort on the thing, right? You know, whereas if I'm trying to help my father with something, he has this ongoing tendency to try to. Okay, he and my mom do the same thing on a lot of things, with just, make the little comments to try to make you feel stupid, like you are incapable of doing the thing, even though the only reason you're doing the thing is to help them anyway. They still have that tendency to be negative and nitpicky and try to tear you down in the process, right? Okay, so when we were going up to Community North for a couple, they had appointments at the heart hospital area. Anytime we've gone there, I put the address in the Waze app, because I don't, with construction, that app knows where all the construction is, right? So, my dad at one point, I think the third time we were going, he's like, you still need that app to get up here. It's like, this app is telling me which roads to avoid because of construction or because of traffic issues. So yes, I do need this app. It's like, it's not that I can't get here without it. It's that it tells me other things. And if I want to avoid a route because of something that comes up, or because of a fucking speed trap or whatever, then yeah, I think that is a good reason to use it. But, he's just like, thinking of it as the only reason you need one of these apps is to get the directions specifically. It's like, it does a lot more than just that, but it's like the condescension in which he was talking, it's like, that's always been there. And my mom even threw out that it does a lot of other things. Because like, as we're going, it's like, oh, it's changed its mind. We're not going that way anymore. Now we're going to turn on this road instead. So yeah, it's like, she can understand more of that, whereas he's just being a dick, thinking that I'm too stupid to know how to get from point A to point B. So yeah, it's like, anytime he has the opportunity to say the little nitpicky, hateful thing, he takes it, because that's the kind of person he is. That's the kind of person he is, especially now that he's had the strokes. But he was the same person before. He's just more of a dick now because he's had the strokes, and like, yeah, well, if you want to see it that way, I guess. But he's just a dick, so whatever. My mom said something about one of the tech bros, buying something else, and I was like, of course, because they're trying to limit the factual information that people can get, because they want to propagandize everything and, allow you to keep thinking that the pedophile in chief is anything but that. I kind of started on a tangent. My dad's just like, I really just don't want to talk about this. It's like, of course you don't, because there's dissonance in your system every time you latch on to watch the worst, the Fox bullshit and all that stuff, right? Because those are the spaces he likes to spend his time in. The ones that are talking like, dipshit's God or something. It's like, yeah, no, he's not. And you're believing that he is, or your inclination to want to believe that he's anything other than trying to fuck everybody over, is exactly, you are his target audience, right? He doesn't like the educated and all that stuff, because they start catching on. And whereas, the rest just go along with whatever is saying because they want to believe the illusion and blah, blah, blah. And, I've talked a lot on here too about the, okay, I watched something the other day that was talking about how the boomer generation, they have the technology and they have available the stuff where they could fact check, but they choose not to, so they tend to be the most easily scammed. and I have talked on here a few times about the various scams that I have, tried to pull my parents out of after they already started getting into them, right? So, like, there's been at least 3 times where my dad, since I have been back in the house, I left my ex in Alabama in 2019, and when I got back here, I don't know how quick it was that started happening, but there's at least 5 scams that I have gotten in the way of, and 3 involved giving somebody, there was some alert that popped up and wouldn't go away because they get into all the bullshit that, that's basically got the sort of stuff where they're looking for the suckers. And then it pops up a phone number and call this number, and then they call it, and then they're giving some guy access to their information, and like actually letting the guy into the computer. It's like the only person you ever let have access to your computer is Jeff. Jeff is the longtime family friend that has the computer business, right? He's the only one you do that for. Anybody else is a bad idea, especially if you do not know them. I have caught them on the same thing. The first time they were combing through stuff. And then I was like, wait, what's happening? And they told me, and I killed the computer. I was like, no, I said, do not, because the guy was very specific about make sure you, keep it open and all this stuff. It's like, no, that's not a good idea. Yeah. And then the next time they were on the phone, or he was on the phone with them again and was working on giving them the information. And it's like, damn it, stop it. And every time he starts yelling at me like I'm the problem, it's like, you are literally just going along with the scam that you have fallen for multiple times. And then there was one, $1,000 in gift cards for a truck. It's like everything about this. It's like, this is not a good idea. And even when my mom went to get the gift cards, and the guy at I think she got them at Best Buy, was like, please tell me you're not trying to pay somebody with gift cards. And yes, of course she did. So then they were just out $1,000 on that one. There's been at least one other thing, and I'm not even I don't even remember exactly what that was. There was one of those where, I don't know, that one, my sister-in-law, I caught her on one of them too, and it was something that I had gotten into on Facebook when I started trying to sell things on the marketplace. I had somebody that was acting way too excited for a fish tank that I was trying to sell, and he was supposedly in the military. He had one profile picture. It's like, well, that's pretty common for people stealing other people's pictures and using those for, to create little scam pages, right? But they were wanting to pay me through Zelle, and there was like this big thing. They sent me an email, something was Zelle Business. Now, the stuff on that email, because there's a little bit of time that it took for me to really be like, no, this is a problem. So the email I didn't have a problem with. Lots of people have my email, but the thing that they sent me when I was looking at it, it's like, this don't track, and then he starts talking about how he wanted to send me he was going to send me some sort of amount where it would cover what I was asking for the fish tank, which I'm wanting to say was probably like $100 or something, because there was a bunch of stuff with it. but he was going to send me an extra $400 and I was supposed to reimburse it. It's like, nope, that don't track. It's like, why would you trust that I would send you that money? Why would you be so generous to say you're going to send me this extra to foot the difference on this business thing? It's like, no. And it was a couple years after that, my sister-in-law was trying to sell something this past year. And I overheard her say something, and it sounded similar to that. And she was talking about Zelle business. I was like, wait a second. And I was like, what are you talking about? I said, because I had somebody that was trying to scam me that way a couple of years ago. And when I kind of gave her the overview, and she stopped and was like, I'm glad you said that. She said, because that's what this is. She says, if I would have looked a little closer, I would have noticed that. She said that, like, something about with the email that they sent and where it came from. It's like, that definitely wasn't a Zelle thing. It's like, yeah. Yeah. So it's like, part of it is through the experience, right? That's how we learn. And my parents clearly don't learn. So, yeah. Okay, there was a thought in there. I almost diverged, and then I think I wandered that way instead. No. Where's the path back? I don't know. So, since I don't know, we'll just kind of wander a different route for a little bit. So, excuse me. Okay. Last night, not last night. The past couple nights, I've been watching, I've talked on here several times about, since I wouldn't allow myself to watch any of the evil horror movies, when I was in my churchianity days, I'm making up for lost time, right? I'm trying to watch the movies that I, thought were so terrible before. And go back to this ridiculousness of, I was like 30 before I watched Nightmare Before Christmas because I thought it was going to be bad. And now it's like one of my favorite things. But there was a span of time, and when the first time I started watching it, I was working at the group home, and then it was just kind of creepy because it was like dark, and I've told stories about the creepiness of the group home, and like everybody on the staff was pretty sure that it was haunted, and I've talked about how I hated going in the basement to check the downstairs door to make sure it was locked, and also do the fridge temps, but it was part of the night shift job. Of course, you don't want somebody creeping in through the basement when you don't know anybody's not there, let alone, then now they're sneaking up on you. That's, no. But it was really creepy to go down there, and I always preferred doing that when the evening shift staff was still there. Right, so I would get there a little bit early, and they were staying over, finishing their notes, and be like, hey, cool, I'm going to go do this real quick. Because there were several times where it felt like there was somebody standing at the top of the stairs just watching me. And it's like, that's not a fun feeling, right? So, of course, I tried to stay away from the darker themed type movies while I was in that space. God, there was one night I was going to watch the Goonies, and there was something in the first, 5 or 10 minutes of it where it's like, yeah, I'm not watching this here. I don't think I ever went back and finished it. I think I have it, but yeah, but there was just something that was like, I think this is not a movie I want to watch in this space. So I didn't, right? So now I'm catching up on horror movies, right? And I knew that the Omen is, of course, going to have its certain themes, but I was going to do it anyway, right? And they have the set at the library, and this is the biggest reason why I've followed so many of these tracks, is because it's not just one movie they have. It's like there's 4 in the set, so, and the set is all there in this one disc, or this one thing at the you can get at the library, right? And you check it out like it's one movie, even though it's not. So that one is the same, and it has 5 discs in it, right? So it has the original, which I think is from like 1976, and then it has the 2006 version of that one, and then there's like 2, 3, and 4. I didn't know there were that many of them. Okay, first off, the first disc that I put in ended up being the one from 2006. It's like, okay, I like this. I like that it's more modern, right? I like that I know that Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber, I think. I know those names, right? I know who they are, what they've been, or some of the other things they've been in, and I like that, right? So I ended up starting there. The divine we, me, myself, and I, right? So I started there. And then when I went to watch the second one, I started there because it was the first one in the set, for like in the first disc in the thing. And it said it was the first one, so I assumed that it was the first one, right? It wasn't the original, but it was the first, so I was like, yeah, screw it, we'll just start here. I'm glad I did. Because when, like, the first few scenes were exactly the same, it's like, I don't need to watch the original. I can just count, and I have watched it, and that's good enough. So, like, when I put the second one in, it's like, well, this is clearly older. So, so I did have that moment of maybe I should watch the original. But then I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this again. So I didn't. And so I went ahead and watched the second one. I think it was on Sunday. And the last night I watched the third one. And basically the endings of any of them is just kind of like, I've talked about that a lot. It's like anything that's like Christianity related is like, let me beat you over the head with a point, right? So it's like, that is like one of my biggest pet peeves. So of course, when we end on like, here's these Bible verses, and then here's Jesus coming back and carrying this little child and stuff, it's like, gross. Now for Jesus, I have no problems with Jesus. I have a problem with churchianity, which I do not believe is anything close to the majority of the Christ message. Now, of course, the red letters, yes. If you actually pay attention to what Jesus was saying, which I always try to, like, that was the thing that I wanted to understand, I think, more than any of it, was like all the things, right? Okay, so there's a verse, I don't know which book it's in, but there's a verse that I remember reading when I was in high school that was talking about basically you weren't ready for the meat, so I had to give you the milk rather than the actual substance, right? So you couldn't receive the message beyond this little like formulated version for little kids, so that's what I had to give you, because that's all you were ready to pay attention to. You weren't ready for the meat, you couldn't handle the meat, you didn't get the meat, right? And I remember thinking as I read through this verse, it's like, I don't want to like forever be in that existence. I want to understand more. I want to be able to receive the deeper meaning of the thing and to understand it within context and beyond context and see how it's playing out, right? Which has largely been why I had to spend all that time before where I believed in the illusion, before I got disconnected from the illusion, and it's like, oh, saying that this stuff is bullshit, right? So like when I got my TBI, I was in seminary, right? So I had my first semester of seminary, and quit licking. Oh, what? Both of you, quit. Gross. That's like the worst noise ever. You're doing it again. It's gonna be bath time soon. Then he's gonna do it again too. Anyway, oh, traumatic brain injury. Okay, so there again with my negative synchronicities. Don't start. I'm gonna throw you out. Little stinky. I was like, stop. Okay, so my first semester, I took this history of Christianity thing, right, or class, and I don't even remember what years it was. I think it was up through 1500, maybe. Now we're drinking. Dude. I got him off the bed and he hushed, but now he's annoying me in that way. Anyway, like there was one weekend, okay, so like my family does the weekend things over at my grandmother's house, right? And that was after my great-grandmother had died. My great-grandmother, her 4 daughters and their spouses, if they had them, would go and spend, Sunday evening with her, and they'd have their visit and desserts and whatever, maybe play cards or whatever, just whatever. After she died, my grandmother and grandfather decided they wanted to do that with their family, right? So that's been the thing, is everybody's supposed to go to their house every Sunday. And it's been this way for years. And I was pretty reliable on being there. And when I started seminary, so January 2013, I started my first semester of seminary, and I don't remember exactly how it came up. I think it was like March where I was having this conversation with the family, but I started talking about the Crusades, right? Because that's always been a big sticking point for me, is for the Christ message. How the fuck did the Crusades happen, right? Because that's very much not Christ's message. And I started talking about it, and my grandmother just looked at me like the gates of hell had opened up behind me and were ready to swallow me up. I was just like, it's kind of interesting. And it's one of those things, it's like the energy, where I've always been picking up on the deeper layers, the stuff most people might miss because they're not aware of the energy that's in the conversation too. So maybe nobody else saw that beyond my grandmother's fury at the idea that it's, I'm commenting on the problematic issue that I'm having with these Crusades having been an actual thing. And she's looking at me like the gates of hell have opened up behind me and are really ready to swallow me up, right? So this is also with that energy reading thing. That's one of those things where I, was picking up on the messages throughout my life about how I was not supposed to use my voice because my family was very much threatened by it, right? So anyway, negative synchronicities. Since I got married to the dude that I wasn't supposed to be with. He was not my people, right? And yet for the lesson, I was supposed to be there, yes. But that was not my forever, by any means. It was never meant to be. That was just a lesson that I had intended to learn along the line, and that was the prime situation of helping me learn about myself at many levels, as well as the world around me. And, that point of, if you constantly are bending over backwards to do for other people to help them, they just appreciate you less, right? So those kind of things that are picking up. Anyway, negative synchronicities. So in March, we signed the lease on a rental house. And it was the Friday before Easter Sunday, right? And hey, Good Friday. What a good Friday, right? So while we're talking to the landlords, my phone rings. Since we're in a meeting, I ignore it, right? It's like, I'll deal with that later. After the landlords leave and I listen to the message, and it's, from the temp agency that I was working with at the time, I had to call them back. And it was that I lost my job, right? A job that I've talked on here a couple times before. I hated. It was a call center, and I was somebody that was terrified of using my voice. So there was always that little layer of irony because I was calling people, right? And having to talk to them on the phone. So it was one of those, it was never going to be long term, but it was still something stupid that I tried because I left my group home job after the military experience, because there was the one client that had I don't know if he hated the military in general or women in the military. There was some kind of combination of things where we clashed in a bad way, and I wanted to deck him very much. So I figured it was in my best interest to not continue that job where I know this client's going to be at for a while, right? And I wanted to say that client actually did a few years after I left. Oh, it was shortly after I left, I think. I don't remember which time of me leaving. It might have been that time. He attacked one of the other staff and had, I don't know, I don't know if she quit or retired. I don't know if she had enough years to be able to retire. But she ended up leaving the company, and, she had some pretty substantial PTSD from having her ass kicked by a client, and it was that client. So he was kind of just one of those that was just waiting for the perfect storm, I guess. But anyway, since this guy was being such a dick when I got back, that it was just, that wasn't going to go away. He was a dick before I left, but then it seemed like it really amped up, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it was something with his hatred of the military or women in the military, or just women for that matter. But I was so pissed. Actually, the day that my ex that I did marry met my parents, right? I came home and I from the night shift, and I was just in this rage, and my mom has breakfast ready, and dude comes over to meet them for the first time, and my dad was just pick, and he wouldn't leave me alone. It's I am infuriated, and it's obvious. I'm not trying to hide that at all. And he's just, poking the bear with the stick as much as he possibly can. And it got to the point where I was so pissed that I walked out the front door, and I just walked down the street. And that's something I'd never done on this road before. It's always been, it's a pretty busy road, but there's a field on one side, and for now. And that was the side I was on. But since it was field, I didn't have anything to worry about because I was off the road, right? So I just I just went out the door, and I just started walking, and I just ended up down at the little grocery store at the corner, which is now probably half mile to 3/4 of a mile down the road. And then, I went to the bathroom, turned around, and came back. I was all right, what am I going to do? I didn't take anything with me. It wasn't there to shop or anything. So I just, but yeah, that was the end of the group home job, at least for that span of time. But yeah, so when it came to the negative synchronicities, at this point, I married the dude, and the voice all the way down the aisle, the voice I wouldn't listen to, my inner voice, right? because I knew, okay, so I was talking the other day about how I had my seminary entrance interview the day of my wedding, and I went ahead and went because they'll know I'm serious. But in reality, it's because if I hadn't gone and hadn't kept myself otherwise preoccupied, I would not have been able to go through that marriage. Because, like the voice said as I was walking down the aisle, you don't even like him, let alone love him. What the fuck are you doing? But for whatever reason, I felt stuck. And the family stuff was why I felt stuck, right? So, anyway. Negative synchronicities, the stuff. Oh, so after I lost the job I hated, I told my ex, it's like, all right, so for this semester, I'll just max out my student loan and, use that money to help pay the bills. I said, as soon as the end of the semester rolls around, then I will focus on trying to get a new job. May 8th was the end of the semester. May 14th, I fell at home on the stairs and broke my brain. Right? So, and it was when I fell, was on the stairs, had Ziva under my arm, and it was like everything went black and starry. But I was still thinking through things. It's like, all right, so what happened? What did I hit? What hurts? How did this happen? I was thinking, okay, so I had my one hand on the banister, and I could feel where my wrist had hit on there before I went down, which is probably a big part of why I didn't fall down the rest of the stairs, because I was holding on enough to catch myself. Right, anyway, point of that all, the TBI was essentially the thing that, it was like once I got the TBI, anything that was not aligning with what I was learning, okay, like all the conditioning of the past, right? It's like there was suddenly a clash on what I just accepted and believed versus had to stop and be like, okay, so what would be the point of this? Like, for instance, in, I think it might have been the Hebrew scriptures class, because I've wondered about this before. I know, I knew who the teacher was. I can see her clearly. I can tell you her name, but I'm not going to. But, I know I had her for multiple classes. I don't know. Squealy tires. They open this road up. It's two-way again. So it's, sketchy. Anyway, and there was a phone call coming in. Anyway, so I think it was the Hebrew Scriptures class, or Hebrews Testament, where... And we specifically called it that way because we did not negate the fact that it was still there by, there was a whole religion. They used that, just the Old Testament, as churchianity wants to call it. So we called it Hebrew Scripture, Hebrew Testament, as a means of recognizing that there was still a whole thing around that part. So it wasn't just that Jesus' life rendered all of that irrelevant, right? That wasn't the point of it so much. I mean, especially since a lot of it's still in there, not all of it by any means. But, so Hebrew Scriptures, we're talking about how they did not have a Satan figure, right? And the space where it came in at, like the word, I think was like Hasatan, which translates to adversary. So it was not this evil figure. It was this adversarial role, which in truth, which I don't know how much of it we were talking about from that space or from that class, but in truth is just like the the shadow aspect of yourself, right? Essentially, oops, knock over my pictures. Like when Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan," it wasn't because Peter was Satan or in that moment seen as Satan. He was speaking from the shadow side of himself, which there again, you have to reconcile the light and the shadow within yourself before you can really be a whole person and actually have a life that's not preoccupied with the death of the world. I mean, essentially. By the way, so the TBI was the thing that started making it really hard it was like the brick wall in between the conditioning of where I just accepted things before, and then that doesn't vibe right. There is something more to that. So that point of, if there wasn't a Satan in the Hebrew scriptures, which was there first, why is there suddenly one in the New Testament? It's like, what would be the purpose of adding this? Except if you are so locked in on the idea that that there's this evil entity that's doing all this shady shit, then you're not doing your own work, because that's an aspect that you have to reconcile within you, the shadow, right? And if you can't reconcile that shadow aspect is there within you, and you're busy blaming somebody else, you're very controllable, right? You essentially are occupying that space of fear that the other is out to get you. And if you have fear of the other, that fear is, what's in control, right? So, or hatred, as it's often also seen, and that makes me think of that thing up there. It's not exact by any means, but there's this thing I found on Facebook a few years ago, and it has this girl in a black dress sitting next to a girl in a white dress, but it's the same girl, right? It's just black dress versus white dress. And it says, "I sat with my anger long enough. She told me her real name was grief." So it's like that whole, will you not? This is why you don't get to be around in my videos anymore. I will shut you out of here. But anyway, after the... Alright, just let Gidget down, because there was a bone on the bed, and Ziva was the only one that stayed in here, and I gave it to her. Anyway, yeah, so the biggest point was the TBI was like, it became this sort of brick wall, but things aren't sticking to it. It's like sliding down. It's like, nope, that's shit. That doesn't work anymore. Or the fact that the story of the woman at the well was added like a few hundred years after the fact of the Bible being put together. So it's like, okay, so what is the point of this kind of story, right? So seeing how things have been changed, even though there's that idea within the church specifically. I don't remember if it's actually in the book or not. It's been a long time since I've read any of it. Although 2011, I read all of it except, I think, the book of Revelation. And I have read the whole thing. I just didn't read it all at that. I read the most of it at that point in time, and then wandered off from it for a while. And that have been, but there's a whole lot of people that want to say, because I didn't have it all retained, that it didn't actually mean anything. It's like, I was like spending every day in 2011. I would spend every day with like so much Bible study time, and then I would journal and try to make connections and make sense of things. And I was going to Bible studies all the time, and like with the old ladies, I talked about that one the other day, and just trying to get all the information about the belief system that I could. And after the TBI, it was just, I can't realistically hear that this stuff was added later and not want to see it from the idea of what was the point of putting it there. Like what, okay, like I've heard that like the idea, okay, the topic of homosexuality wasn't even in there until the 1940s. So there's this idea in church that you're not supposed to change any of it. But if you just have this idea that you're not supposed to change any of it, and you blindly accept that nobody's ever changed any of it, then you end up missing a whole lot of stuff. And the point is, if homosexuality wasn't even talked about until the 1940s in it, what was the point of putting it there? Right? So it's like actually wanting to know more about that idea. And like the whole point, obviously, like, okay, so those that like to lead in religion have a motive, right? Like whether at the very just the basis of they are in a leadership position in the church, they were approved of by the church at some level to lead, right? Now, I remember this idea when I was in the Methodist church here in town. We started going, I think, my junior year in high school, because a lot of the some of the other drumline kids were, and then it became a thing where mostly because they started a youth specific program. And like Tyler and Paul were like two of the most popular that were there to start it. They brought in a bunch of people, and since they were in drumline, they brought in a bunch of drumline people, right? So it was kind of a bonding thing for all of us way back then. And I don't know if it was my senior year or if, I think it was after that. Undergrad sometime maybe. Yeah, because they came to my graduation party, which was at the church. And, well, no, my college graduation party was at the church. They did come to the one at my house too, I think. Or maybe they gave me this little Michael W. Smith, Your Place in the World book that, was specifically because I was getting ready to go to college, right? But the pastor, who was the associate pastor of the church, who was the youth pastor and kind of the start of the youth program, right? Her husband was the main pastor for the main church. Anyway, so like they were together. But after I graduated, they ended up getting shooed along to the next place, right? And it was the idea that they didn't want, that the Methodist Church didn't want any church members to become too reliant on the leaders of the, they don't want anybody to be too attached to the shepherds of the flock, right? So they shoo them along every little bit. But I think it has more to do with the the fact that the crotchety old founding members of the church had a certain way of wanting to do things, and if anything challenged that in any way, well, then it's time for them to move on, right? So I know one of them was my grandfather's really good buddy who he's a farmer, and his family was known to have some money. They were like founding members of the church, kind of a thing. Anyway, I don't even know why I wandered that way. Ventured off quite a ways from the whole, just watching the movie The Omen. But yeah, like that was just the thing that, like, with all my life experience and what I've been learning about the church, and how, literally when I divorced my ex, I divorced my entire belief system because I realized how toxic beliefs were what got me into that connection to begin with, but also made me feel stuck. Like I was trapped in this connection and couldn't get out of it because my dad kept watching shit on TV where the pastor's talking about how bad it is that the church has as high of a divorce rate as, the rest of the world. It's like, but ultimately that's kind of part of the purpose of religion, is to lock people into shitty connections that they feel stuck in. And so they can't have an actual healthy existence, actual healthy relationships beyond what the church has told them is okay. Anyway, I'm going to wander off from that because I'm kind of over talking about that, to be honest. I don't. I've talked about many times. I'm going to still tie in with it. This whole twin flame connection, right? So I wanted to understand how people get into the toxic relationships that they do and then get stuck and feel like they can't get out of them. So I had to live through that experience, right? And so what I learned was one of the biggest things that the church has done to make sure that that happens is to push the idea of women are less than men, right? Because penises, right? That's that's the extent of it. If you have a penis, then you are worthwhile and are able to talk in church and able to make the big decisions and all these things because penises, yeah. But that's also really the root reason that they are so or have been throughout history so especially harsh of like indigenous type communities and functioning, right? Because when the colonists, whatever, when they came here to America and discovered the land, right? Like there weren't already people living here that had a way of functioning, that had functioning existences, right? Without the white people in the middle of it. And I'm going to come this way. Sorry. She wouldn't have minded had I not landed on her tail. Anyway. But because the brown people had existences that were peaceful and not not tampered with by the fucking white people, essentially they had to make brown people out to be the enemy, right? So, they come over, invade the land, they see something they want, so they want to take the land, right? So they have to kill off a big bunch of the brown people that are already here, but to go along with the brown people that they stole from their lands to, bring over here as slaves and whatnot, right? Will you stop? She's going to yawn at me. Oh man, she smells. That's why today's bath day. Anyway, not before we're done with the video though. Not right now. So yeah, okay, so another thing that I've been thinking a lot lately. Okay, so I remember when I was growing up hearing the stereotype of black men as absent fathers. And one of the things that has really kind of stood out to me here lately, or that I've been thinking about here lately, is, they literally were breaking apart the families, stealing all of them, but to treat them as animals and less than. But then the pain of having that existence, that you have a family and then you get ripped apart by some assholes with weapons that, are, beating you or whatever and trying to make you do things that they don't want to do, basically. The beliefs that get inserted, or the pain of having the families ripped apart, right? Let's start there. So the pain of having the family system ripped apart, and then that pain that doesn't get addressed gets passed on to the next generations, right? And I've talked a lot about the energetic cords and, okay. So the one day, or I've done it a couple times, I think, where I was talking about how, because of the agreement that my grandfather entered into with my grandmother, sorry, dogs make noise. Because of their agreement, right? So they get married, she buys into his bullshit, and because she brings his children into the world, okay, there's that point that I've talked on here a lot about too, where, okay, little girls are born with all the eggs they have in their entire lifetime, right? So this being the idea, when my grandmother was pregnant with my mother, getting ready to give birth to my mother, there's 3 generations right there, because grandmother, mother, me, right? And it's through my grandfather, impregnating my grandma, through their connection, their energetic agreement, he gains access to the life force of 3 generations, right? And which is a big part of why they want women to feel and believe they are subservient, right? So, which is also part of that harshness for the brown people who have had other belief systems before Christianity was assaulted into their path, because churchianity was literally throughout history. There's the Crusades. There's the fact that a whole bunch of pagan traditions were virtually wiped out for a span of time because of Christians, and yet they're perpetually always playing the victim, right? So they go in, they see themselves as, they're the heroes there to conquer the things, and conquer the heathens, and bring them around to Jesus, right? Because Jesus, but they don't actually have the Christ message at all, which is why they're so willing to be violent to force that way on others. And, then when other people fight back, which is generally through the feminine, right? It's not that it's that the feminine aspect, which everybody carries within, right? So, I've talked a lot on here about how boys and men have been bullied for having emotions, for having compassion for other humans, because that is the feminine aspect that the toxic, distorted masculines of the world don't want to have to deal with, because then they have to, if they have to deal with other people having compassion and coming together because the shit ain't right, then they got other shit to deal with that they don't want to deal with, because they just want to continue bullying people and getting their way. Right. Okay. I had a dream yesterday. Okay. Less a dream, was just kind of that envisioning myself in a different space. Okay. So this weekend I saw a video where some dude dressed up as a German soldier, went to a bar, and it was a woman that blocked him from going in, right? So then, another video pops up later where dude attacks a woman outside of this bar, and it was 3 other women that came in to fight him off, basically. And somebody in the comments had, dude's yelling at me again, had pointed out, she said, of course it's the women that have to come together to protect another woman. All the men are just standing there and taking video and all this stuff. So yesterday morning, okay, I've talked many times about how I try to start my day in like a really good space. And often I can feel that connection with the twin flame. And, I have a relatively easy time starting in a good space because of that. Dude, shut up. because I'm connecting with him at this other level, and, trying to lock in that happy space, right? Yesterday, I felt a disconnect from it. And it's like, what is this, right? So I let the vision play out, and I see myself as one of the people who is, coming to the aid of this other girl, right? And, as I'm... What the fuck's that at? Dropped 15 pounds in 30 days. Now my stomach's talking. Cool. Anyway, so I see myself in this space stepping in to protect this girl, or to come to her aid, right? And as I kind of step back from it, I see it as my counterpart is there kind of standing back. And the thing that I was thinking was that a lot of the change and the healing that's happening for the world has to come through the feminine, because it's about taking, okay, like, I've talked on here a lot about how because I believed that I needed something outside of myself to save me along the way, I felt powerless, right? So I remember, I think, like, being in high school, and it's like, well, if somebody ever started shit, I don't feel like I could actually protect myself, right? So when I have this vision yesterday, it's like I threw a punch and it connected where it was meant to connect. And it was the idea of, I don't feel like I'm disempowered now. I feel like if I am standing up for the good of others, that it's going to be met positively because of the work that I've been doing to heal myself. And so in this little vision where my counterpart is standing back, just letting me do my thing, it was kind of that representation that I feel like I need to get my journal and remind myself what I wrote down. Like, excuse me, like that's a big part of, excuse me again, damn it. It's a big part of the process, right? So a lot of us have spent our lives being bullied by essentially the toxic masculines, right? The dudes that think they're better because they have a penis, right? The ones that want to go spread their seed as much as they can, and yet at the same time, while they're wanting to have all these kids everywhere, they're also demonizing women as being whores if they hook up with them too, right? So it's like this interesting little contradiction, but the point of it is it has, like, the healing and the recognition of the bullshit has to come through the feminine, because she has to remember that she's not powerless, right? So, and through, like, okay, so I've talked about the good guys that I've always been protective of in my lifetime being those that ultimately have compassion, right? They have empathy for others. They're not demonizing it like churchianity is currently trying to do. And yeah, specifically the guys that are just trying to live their own lives and not make things harder for anyone else, right? But the changes that we want to see in the world are going to come through the fact that the feminine is healing and realizing that she's not powerless, and through uniting with, other aspects of the feminine that are in agreement of this point and, coming together through that. It's also that point that, the good guys feel empowered to step up as well. But since a lot of the bullies, like all the bullies in my life, there have been those that have also been in female form. My mother as one of them. The girl in 5th grade as another of them. It specifically seems like people more aligned with the distorted masculine aspect of themselves. And the distortion is largely because we had to step down a few notches on the frequency when we chose to come to Earth, right? So, and like the whole reason we're here now is to help heal the shit so we can create a better way of being, a better path for everybody, and not just one certain group of people. That doesn't work. I've talked on here a lot about how if it doesn't work for one, it doesn't truly work for any, because eventually everybody's going to flip to the side where they're getting fucked over, because that's the way the system's set up to do, is to the system has all the power and control, and everybody else is check. Right? So I gotta see what's going on out there. I think Taz was just dancing outside of the door. You know what? I'm going to. Okay, so I'm going to have to go in the other room to read this, but I will. And that room's a mess, but whatever. It is what it is. It also doesn't have the good lighting. Although I do have my desk light on in there, so. Okay. So. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Hold on. Okay, so when I went to the Falling in Reverse concert back in August, there was this little incident where a girl was making fun of another girl. And anyway, I wrote this thing. There's kind of an open letter to the girl because I didn't say anything. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and... Okay, see if I can have me in here and actually... Ooh, that light. Okay, I'm just going to read it. Okay, so it says, to the girl at the Falling in Reverse concert in Indy 2025, I saw the skinny snot that laughed at you as you walked up the stairs, minding your own business and excitedly going to catch up to your friend. I just walked past her at the bottom of the stairs as I went up to find a spot on the lawn after having just purchased a shirt. I saw her point you out to her boyfriend, and they just laughed as you walked up. I was just a few steps behind you, but you paused when you reached your friend, and I kept ascending. I thought about what I might say to you as I passed, but ended up not saying anything, although in my mind I had already known you were aware of the laughter following you up the steps as I was hearing it clearly myself. I wanted to tell you to ignore her because it takes a truly miserable person to go out of their way to try to bring a stranger down for no other reason than the judgment she chose to cast for her opinion of what you were wearing. I wanted to tell you not to allow her the space in your head to ruin your evening because that was exactly what her misery wanted. Misery loves company, and the miserable seem most willing to try to ruin others' good moods, and this at an event we all paid to see. Instead, I said nothing. I walked silently by as I stared up the steps as I was continuing up as I heard you tell your friend that the girl had been laughing at you. She didn't seem as aware of the situation as the other three of us were, and I stayed in silence. For that I am sorry. It doesn't matter that somewhere in my mind I was imagining an encounter where I called her out and asked her how miserable she had to be to point and laugh at someone for no other reason than her shallow judgment of whether she thought they looked acceptable enough to wear something freely without comment. The timelines of me standing up for someone else, regardless of how the preceding events might come to play out, went silently by just as I did. And while I had thought about saying something at the bottom of the stairs as I passed her, and while I had thought about offering support for you as I passed you, instead I did as I've always done and kept my eyes forward and my mouth shut. I imagined saying something to her as she stood dumbfounded at being called out on bad behavior, and I imagined another scenario where she got indignant at having been called out and slapped me instead. How any of it would have turned out I can never know because I chose to remain silent. It's been 5 weeks and I still haven't forgotten that night where I chose silence over taking a stand for a stranger. And while I can't say it's the first time I wish I would have said something and didn't, I can say that I fully intend to do better moving forward and to prioritize doing the right thing, even when it may be uncomfortable. I know that feeling of others' rejection all too well myself. It is the root of my silence, but the silence in the face of doing something of value for a stranger is a weed in the existence of humanity. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to pause and go back to the other room. Okay, so I've thought about posting that as like an actual post on YouTube, and probably will, since I've read it now, in case anybody wants to revisit it. But I wrote that and posted it on Vocal the other night, because like that's something that like the whole incident like has stayed with me ever since that concert. Was just, I heard the girl say the mean thing at the bottom and she and her boyfriend were laughing, and then I was going up the stairs and then I heard the other girl, and it's like, I didn't say anything, right? And it's like, that is a big part of the problem of what's going on collectively, is the times we witness something and don't take a stand for the right thing, right? Or for the good. I think that that's a big part of where that little vision from yesterday came in at too, is because I wrote this letter because I fully intend to not be the person that can just walk past, right? Like that I've always choked on my words over sharing the words, right? And you know, how they land or could land in any situation, that's not up to me to know. But if I don't even bother trying to do the right thing, then that's not really fair for anyone either, right? So, like, essentially, like, what's going on now collectively is some of us are doing the healing and trying to figure out where we can or should say the thing and speak up when we witness somebody else doing the wrong thing. But as more and more of us choose to step in and to help others who are harmed by the system that's in place, then, the system loses power. And I kind of feel like that's a big part of, why the government situation looks as much of a hot mess as it does, is because they know they're losing power, and that the people are coming together and they don't like it, right? Because, heaven forbid the billionaires not be billionaires anymore because, people stop allowing them to have the money that maybe some of it was earned fairly, but how much of it, right? Or like, how much did Elon get from helping out the pedophile in chief to win the rigged election, right? Like that kind of stuff. Like how much of what's going on is just they're all supporting their own toxic interests, and like the fucking Epstein files, like the fact that those still haven't been released. There must be a lot of people on there that have had a lot of money and a lot of power that don't want their information getting out, because at the end of the day, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people like me who feel that anybody who has been capitalizing on an existence where they have been able to assault other human beings for any purpose should not benefit in any way, and they should absolutely have to pay for everything they've done, right? And the years of damage that they have done to other people's lives, and that being even those that might not have been, okay, like my grandfather was not a human trafficker or anything, but his obsession with making his family looking like the happy family that, the dream was sold to them along the way, right? So long as his family looked happy, they didn't actually have to be happy. They just, had to not make him look bad, right? But the system is exactly set up for that, to make... Will you quit? Y'all, man. This licking is driving me nuts today. I need less dogs in my videos. I love them to death, but they're distracting. And now I lost it again. Hey, shh. Quit licking. Okay, for my grandfather, right? So his thing wasn't doing the bad thing like pedo in chief was, right? He's all about helping those that are actively fucking people over. But he was into buying the illusion that his family looked good, right? That his family was the big happy family that the American dream sold him, right? But because he bought into the illusion and was trying to keep everybody else locked into the illusion, that's exactly what allowed the illusion to get to the full embodiment that we have today, where, the fucking government is trying to, hey, stop! God damn it! To fuck us all, right? It's always been fucking us over, and like, got on Instagram long enough earlier and got distracted by a video where somebody was talking about how war movies are just propaganda. That's all they've ever been. It's because you want to buy into the idea of being the hero, and at the end of the day, all you are when you do the thing where you thought was heroic, so you joined in, was become a pawn to people who literally do not give a shit about you or your family or anything. They don't care if you exist. They just care that they have the numbers to fight the battles when they piss off, the wrong people or the people with land that they want or whatever. That's all they want. They don't care about the people who choose to do it because it seems like an honorable thing to do, right? Like that was one of that was a big purpose behind me being in the military at all, was just to gain that experience, to recognize that, the energy of being in the situation where, I got to prove that I am going in as what is on my birth certificate, because that's so important, right? That they're wanting to make it so creepy old men have access to knowing who's playing sports in like middle school and high school. So when I was going into the military and having the same check that they're wanting to do to prove that there are no boys doing sports with girls or whatever, that is the same exact energy that allows for the human trafficking. Right? It's somebody else thinking they need the information so they can pull the strings and determine who's acceptable somewhere and who's not. And then, as they deem somebody else isn't, then that's the new enemy, right? So why current administration and churchianity that's up there big and strong in the president's ear, because they're getting the tax breaks and he's getting the glory of they support him, and because they support him, others in churchianity are supposed to support him too and not using their heads because they've been brainwashed not to. Right? Like that's the whole purpose of the system, is to brainwash people away from putting the pieces together, which is why they've had to demonize the feminine, because if through women we realize we have power and we have the sense to say, hey, that's bullshit, and start speaking up on that end, then it brings more people, those that have the compassion, and recognize that it's not right. As we all come together, they lose control, which they don't like. I'm going to end on this thing too. I watched another video that it was on Facebook, and I don't remember the guy that posted it, but he was talking about, he doesn't know anything at all about Taylor Swift, but he said he does not know of any of her music, and, she's not in his, what he has in his brain of music that he's listened to, right? That's just, he doesn't know. But he's convinced that she is one of the best humans out there because, she got all this money and all this fame. And he showed a little clip where she was talking about people getting their rights taken away, where she's tearing up over like some of just the absolute bullshit. And he said something about how, then the people in her comments that are trying to tear her down, it's all these white dudes, right? The angry white dudes that are pissed at her for being a strong, powerful woman and, not just sitting down and screwing everybody else over because she has the money and doesn't have to give a shit about anything else, right? So what I was thinking when I was sitting outside after I watched this video, it's like, the men that have a problem with her have a problem with women who are strong and able to give back. Ultimately, the men that have a problem with her are mad because they will never get the kind of woman she is, because they refuse to do the work it would take to become a man like the man that is with her, because they don't want to do the work. They want to stay locked into their distortion that they are somehow better because they are white and have a fucking dick, and they're not. So it's like trying to, I guess, balance the scales now, right? So it's like, it's not either or, it's both and, right? So it's not that, so okay, I talk a lot on here about the masculine and feminine, but it's really just a means of understanding things differently, right? So the differences, right? So like like even fucking, okay, if you go to shop at like electrical things, the plugs, right? Think the plug. There's the feminine side where that receives the plug, and there's the masculine side that plugs into it, right? So it's literally just a way of recognizing that there are some differences between the different energies of the things that make us human. But we all have both. Like that is the important part of the journey, is that we reconcile that we have aspects of both within us and trying to find the balance within ourselves, right? So one of the things that I've been thinking about was like, so for my twin flame connection, right? So he had to be in the spotlight, and so he had to be in a spotlight for me to find him, right? So this is being my start point. As I started listening to his music, I'm receiving the energy he's putting out through his music, right? So that is, he's doing the thing, which is using his voice. And as he does that thing, that doing the thing is the masculine aspect of it, right? Receiving what he has put out there, so receiving it on my end, listening to his music, is the feminine part of it, right? But then at the same time, as I, have, damn it, Taz! He's a fucking camel, I swear. Hurt his feelings, now I left the room. As I've been sitting with like the music and spending more time listening to it, as I've made the realization that he had to be in the spotlight for me to find him, but how was he ever going to find me if I didn't start doing more than I'd done? That required me to start doing the YouTube thing, which, again, doing is the masculine energy of it. And, whoever receives the thing, ultimately that's receiving is the feminine aspect of it. So it's just like different layers of the same thing, right? So for the counterpart side of it, the twin flame thing, as I've spent more time listening to what he's put out there, that's awakening the heart within me, which I've always felt very disconnected from when I was trying to do things the way the world was telling me I had to do things. But as I started receiving the music, right, receiving the energy, that woke me up at this other level, and recognizing this connection, then I start having these sorts of these visions and things where I see myself in other spaces and basically am faced with actually, real life time having to make the decision to continue looking at the situation and see what it is that I'm supposed to learn from it to heal from it. And the thing that's immediately coming to mind is when I had the vision where I was with my counterpart in his space. And so I had this vision where Okay, we're together, and he's like sending me flowers, right? But it's like the vision gets stuck, and I just keep getting all these flowers until I get overwhelmed and panic and say, stop, I don't deserve this. And then it's kind of this little pause, and it's like a step back and says, okay, now why do you feel you don't deserve this? Which took me onto the path for that case was the thing that I went to immediately was the only time my father actually did something for me on the gift giving end of things was a pair of socks that he gave me when I was in high school because it was Valentine's Day, and he happened to go to CVS and happened to see this pair of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger socks that was, by the checkout, and decided to get them for me. That was the only thing I remember him doing the entire time I was growing up. So essentially what it became, like that I wore the crap out of those socks because it was the only thing that really made me feel like he actually gave a shit about me, right? So since that was the only thing, that feeds into that worthiness wound, the abandonment wound, and all these different layers of the thing that it's really hard. And now I'm trying to do this life thing, and I don't feel like anybody gives a shit whether I'm here or not, right? So it's just another layer to that because there was a lack of interest or consideration. Now, I mentioned the stereotype where like black men, I remember hearing this stereotype of the absent father, right? So I started that and I don't think I finished that. But so families were ripped apart because, they want to take the men and use them as slaves, right? So make them animals to do work so they don't have to work harder, right? That's the ultimate end goal is the lazy asses that don't want to have to do the work themselves, right? They don't want to do the hard stuff themselves. So they rip families apart so they can steal the fathers, and the fathers don't get to participate in their kids growing up or lives. They don't get to help take care of their wives and do the things that they were able to do for their families before they were ripped away from them, right? So then there's this layer within the fabric of existence of this unhealed thing, because that is a harmful, painful thing, having had a family and been ripped away from them for what, right? But then, so they feed the stereotype saying that these are, they're absent, they're not good fathers, they're not available. But then at the same time, it's actually, like my dad's been pretty emotionally absent. He was always working hard and trying to, provide for the family, sure. But at the deeper levels, it's like, how many of the stories I've talked about on here are looking at him from the negative light? I mean, and ultimately, it's still kind of see him in that light because he's still operating from the space of contributing to the illusion and keeping the illusion alive. And the illusion is bullshit, right? But the illusion is the thing that allows you to believe the stereotypes that certain people are absent. But then here we are again, 2025, and now you have, the pedophile in chief's personal police force that is forcing more people apart, right? Destroying more families, right? Because they don't want people to give a shit about their families. They want to, always keep them separate, because if they keep them separate and divided from each other in any way, then that gives them more power because they're sucking the life out of the rest of us, right? So, as we heal the layers of the issues that are being able to be used against us in the form of stereotypes or whatever. As we do the healing work, the system is losing its power. The system that is in place that very much knows it is losing its its power because, well, I mean, because of you've been sucking the life out of people all of your life, and then suddenly you don't have the access, right? So I'm thinking like my grandma, no, she doesn't know why I'm mad at her. She doesn't know why I don't want to go over there and spend time with her. And the only reason I don't want to spend time with her is because she was complicit to my grandfather's bullshit. She bought into his lie and, agreed to feed the illusion that he had a big happy family, but he didn't, right? And those that were harmed in keeping the illusion alive, right? It wasn't, the immediate next generation, their kids don't seem to have the awareness of it. The grandkids are more aware of. And I don't think they're all necessarily as, maybe as aware of it as I am, as I've been doing this work for the past couple of years, and setting boundaries. But there's definitely some shifts. And anyway, since they're barking, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because it's already an hour and 45 minutes and they need baths. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.